Hello and welcome to this introductory session on referencing using OSCOLA. So as part of this recording we'll consider the principles of good reference management using OSCOLA, and we'll also look at constructing references using OSCOLA. Okay, so let's start talking about what is referencing. So it's really clearly indicating, for the benefit of whoever's reading your work, the sources that you've looked at for your studies and that you've quoted and paraphrased and analysed within your writing. It basically helps to avoid accusations of plagiarism and also shows that you've done some wide research around your subject area. So what should you include in terms of references? You should really include everything that you've either referred to, quoted, summarised or paraphrased in your work. If you're looking for some further guidance, the links on the screen here will give you some more information. So there's the Kent Academic Integrity website, there's the Kent Law School Skills Hub, and there's also the resource Cite Them Right online. So OSCOLA stands for the Oxford University Standard for the Citation of Legal Authorities. So it's specific to law and it's a reference system to cite things like law reports or cases, any types of legislation, be they Acts of Parliament or statutory instruments, and also commentary in legal journals, law reviews, book chapters in books, websites, and anything that you have used within your research. The current edition is the 4th edition, and this is available from Oxford University's website. The link here you can see on the screen, so that will give you some more information that you can refer back to. So some of the main points and features about OSCOLA. So it's a footnote style, and a footnote reference numbers in the main text appear after the punctuation. Each footnote should start with a capital letter and use a full stop at the end of each footnote or a question mark or exclamation mark. When referring to author names in footnotes, it's best to give the name as it appears in the publication. So this will usually be the name surname, i.e. John Smith. If there are 3 or fewer authors, insert "and" before the last author's name in the footnote. So for example, John Smith, Leslie Sharp and Andrew Prue. If there are more than 3 authors, cite the first author followed by "and others." For example, John Smith, Leslie Sharp, Andrew Prue and Megan Matthews. The author would be John Smith and others. For online sources, so anything that's available electronically, if there is the print copy alternative, then cite it as if you were referring to the print. For cases, statutes and journal articles on databases such as Westlaw and LexisLibrary, they should be cited in the same way as a hard copy. If it's only online, then treat it as if you're referencing a website. When you're looking at international materials, OSCOLA, the 4th edition, does not cover international law, so it's better to use OSCOLA 2006 Citing International Law Sources section. This includes things like treaties, international cases and decisions, non-governmental and other international organisations. Pinpoints. So to pinpoint means to identify where within the source you found that information. So it could be at the end of the citation you indicate where the passage on which you are relying is to be found. The pinpoint is usually a page number, but if a case has numbered paragraphs, use the paragraph number instead. Paragraph numbers should be indicated by square brackets, and here are some examples below, firstly for a case and secondly for a book item. So you can see there within the case you've got number 4 is the pinpoint, it's within square brackets there, and then again within the book there you've got 54 to 55. For quotations, you can incorporate the quotation of up to 3 lines into the text within single quotation marks. If the quote is more than 3 lines, then you should indent the paragraph and use it within quote marks. A line space should be left either side of the indented quotation. For books, the format should be as followed: author, then the title in italics, and then in brackets the edition, comma, the published year. Any pinpoints you would have, for example, page 33. So say, for example, you were looking at this intellectual property title and you want to cite a quote from page 28 for your essay. So you can see that the publisher is Oxford University Press, or OUP for short. It's the third edition, it's from 2017. So what would the footnote look like? And here we can see an example. So you can see there you've got the authors, first names followed by surnames, and then you've got the title of the book, Intellectual Property Law, in italics, and then in the brackets you've got the edition, you've got the publisher and the published year, and then you've got 28, which is your pinpoint, the page that you refer to at the end. Okay, so moving on to looking at articles. So again, starting with the author details, followed by the title in quotation marks, and then the year of publication could be in square brackets. So you should put it in square brackets if it identifies the actual volume, but most journals do have a separate volume, so use round brackets if that's the case, followed by the journal name or abbreviation and the first page of the article. So there are some useful links here for you to have a look at. So for example, there's a list of OSCOLA on the site of journals that don't use volumes that might be useful to have a look at. And then in terms of checking abbreviations for different legal journals, there's the Cardiff Index to Legal Abbreviations. There's also a link on the Law Links subject guide, which will give you some more information there as well. Okay, so let's say we want to have a look at this journal article from Modern Law Review. So on the image here you can see we've circled the main bits of information that we need to include in our reference. So we've got the title of the journal it was published in, we've got the title of the article, we've got the author there, we've got things like the volume, the year it was published, and the first page number there from the page ranges. Okay, so you want to look at the reference page 322 of the article, and what does the footnote look like? So you can see here it starts with the author again, first name, surname, the title of the article in the quotation marks, and then you've got the other publication details such as the year, the volume, the abbreviated version of the journal, so that's MLR, which stands for Modern Law Review, and then you've got the first page, but you've also got the pinpoint of 322 page that you wanted to refer to in the article. So just some information to remember. So round brackets are used because the journal does have a volume number. If it didn't, then we would use the square brackets. And again, remember that you do have access to the Cardiff Index to Legal Abbreviations for checking those abbreviated versions of the full journal title for things like Modern Law Review and many others. So some information about referencing cases with a neutral citation. So a neutral citation is a unique reference number which is given to a particular judgment by HM courts and also tribunal services. So unlike the majority of citations, neutral citations do not refer back to a specific report or case, but to the judgment itself, and is to be extended in due course to other divisions of the High Court. So in these cases, you should start with the case name, and then the year in square brackets, followed by the court number, followed by the year in square brackets, the volume, the report abbreviation, and the first page of the case, and also any pinpoints that may be relevant as well. So for example, some more information you can find out to help you with this is again the Cardiff Index to Legal Abbreviations for the shortened versions of the courts, but also we've also got information here about using neutral citation wherever available, and generally these will be any cases that have been heard generally from 2001 onwards. So say for example you found this case from Westlaw and you need to reference the whole thing. So this is how it would look in terms of how the entry would appear on Westlaw, but how would you actually reference it? So you can see again we kind of circle the key pieces of information about the case name and the courts where it's been reported, and law report series where it's actually been made available. Okay, so for the example here we can see the cases in italics named first, followed by the year in square brackets, and then we've got the abbreviated version of the court, which in this case stands for the UK Supreme Court, and then we've got that in square brackets, and then followed by the law report series. So the AC stands for appeal cases, and again 1430 is the first page of that report series. For cases without neutral citation, follow similar layout but include the court at the end in round brackets. So for this example here we've got the House of Lords, which is the court that it was heard within there, just appearing at the end. If you want any advice on the best report to use, well, there's some really good advice again on the Law Links subject guide on which report should you use. Okay, so the legislation, it's the short title of the legislation and then the year. So use capital for the major words with no comma before the year, and again refer to the pinpoints if you need to, if you're looking at a specific paragraph or page or section of that particular legislation. Okay, so again if we look at another example, so if we wanted to use the Data Protection Act in 2018, and say for example you've quoted from different subsections, so 3 and 2 of this Act, how would you then go on to reference that? So you can see at the bottom here we've got the shortened version, so Data Protection Act 2018, and then we've got the sections 3 and 2, and then your full stop there, and that's your reference for the legislation. If you're looking to reference web resources, then again use the author and the web page title in quotation marks, then in commas the website itself and the full date, the URL and the date that you accessed it on. Only use this though where there is no print equivalent to the online version. Okay, so let's have a look at this as another example. So we want to reference the UK Human Rights blog webpage as part of our research. What's the actual reference to that going to have a look like? Okay, and from within that you want to quote from that blog post, and the blog post that you want to quote is called No Compensation for Google Data Breaches by Rosalind English, and then you've got the URL here, and then you can the date that you looked at it was in January, but it was also updated on the 10th of October. So how would you reference that particular resource? Okay, so this is an example of what the reference would then look like. So we've got Rosalind English as the author, then we've got the title of the blog post from that website, No Compensation, in with the apostrophes, and then we've got in the brackets we've got the name of the website, the UK Human Rights blog, in italics. We've got the date that it was last updated, which is in October, and then we've got the URL there, and then also the date that you accessed that on. If the electronic source is available in hard copy, i.e. it's a case, a journal, book, then again remember to cite the hard copy version rather than the online version. When you're referring to a source that's already been cited, you can refer the reader back in two different ways. So firstly, if the citation immediately follows, then IBID can be used. If elsewhere, use a short form of the case name, author surname or abbreviation of the legislation to refer the reader back. For example, author name and then the letter followed by that particular number in terms of which one it is. So to give some examples of how this may look in the footnote, so you can see here we started off by citing a case, the Lucasfilm versus Ainsworth, and then you've referred to it again directly straight afterwards, so you can use the IBID. Then you go on to reference a book by Laura Scaife, and then you'll have a few more references, and then you'll come back to the Lucasfilm that you want to refer to again. So again, you can use the shortened version. So rather than filling out the full thing again, Lucasfilm Limited #1, which is where it appears firstly, and then whatever page you're referring to. And again, if you're referring to the Scaife book, again, you can put just Scaife for the author surname and then #3, so again where it was originally listed in your references, and the IBID again if you've gone on to use Scaife straight afterwards. For bibliographies, they take the same form as the other citations, except the surname first and initials. So no comma separating them, but comma after the first initial. Only initials used for the author's first name, and titles of unattributed works preceded by a hyphen. So bibliographies should be arranged in alphabetical order by author's surname, with unattributed works listed first. Longer legal works include a table of cases and a table of legislation at the beginning. If including cases and legislation in your bibliography, you can also use subheadings for these, such as cases, legislation and secondary sources. Using the citations from earlier will really help you to create your bibliographies. So again, here's an example of how this might look as your bibliography list. So you can see you've got the headings there for your cases, legislation, secondary sources, and then they are listed alphabetically within those, using the author first, followed by their first name's initials. Okay, so the best way really is just to go away and give it a go and try some of these things out. But don't forget, there is lots of help and support here for you. So again, a link to another excellent tutorial which has been created by Cardiff University called Citing the Law. It's an interactive online tutorial freely available, which takes you through lots of different aspects of citing the law. The OSCOLA document guidance itself, again, as I mentioned that earlier on in the recording, that's available from the Oxford University website, and there's a link here to where you can find that access. Also, in terms of help and support at Kent, I've included the details here to the IT and library support desk, and the link to the library web pages. As I mentioned before, I am the law librarian, and I also support Sewell as well, and I'd be more than happy for people to get in touch with me either via email if you've got any questions, or if you want to book an online appointment, then you can use this link and that will show you my availability if you want to have a kind of a Teams virtual meeting if you've got further questions about any of this or other library related resource issues.